What if I told you that you can be getting perks like travel insurance, free health checks, 24/7 access to banking support just by holding a free current account? Well, that's kind of the promise of so-called Premier accounts, which are bank accounts targeted at higher earning customers. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at the HSBC Premier account, partially because they are currently offering a £500 incentive for switching to their service. And since I've held both HSBC and Barclays Premier for a number of years, I'll be able to share my personal experience and help you figure out whether Premier accounts are actually useful or just a marketing gimmick designed by banks to bait you into switching. Finally, in case you want to explore more options later, I wrote an article comparing the 4 best Premier accounts in the UK, and I'm going to link to it down below in the description. So first of all, let's talk about the eligibility criteria, because while these accounts are free and offer additional perks, the flip side is that you have to qualify for them by either having a certain level of income or savings. So with HSBC Premier specifically, the first way to qualify is by having an annual salary of at least £100,000 before taxes paid into your HSBC account every month. And according to terms and conditions, there is no really way to game the system because this actually has to be a salary payment direct from your employer. Then the other alternative way to qualify is by holding savings or investments of at least £100,000 with HSBC. And here it can be things like savings accounts, ISAs, general investment accounts, and others, or a mix of any of these. So while either of these conditions can be kind of tough to meet, the real question is, are the perks that actually come with this Premier account really worth it? And before we jump into the regular perks of the HSBC Premier account, let me talk a little bit more about that switching incentive that I mentioned at the start of the video. Basically, you can get a £500 gift card from Selfridges for switching to HSBC Premier by 12th of August 2025. And while this incentive is not cash, I still consider it to be quite valuable compared to other bank switching offers in the UK, especially given that you can still buy stuff like regular electronics at Selfridges if you're not into, I don't know, designer clothes or whatever else they sell there. I've honestly never been to that store. And yeah, I would say this incentive is actually on par with welcome bonuses on top tier credit cards like Amex Platinum, but unlike the Platinum card, HSBC Premier is a completely free account. But of course, there are additional conditions that you need to follow in order to be eligible for this offer. First of all, you need to be a new customer, meaning that you shouldn't have had an HSBC or First Direct account as of 28th of May 2025, which is when this offer began. Secondly, you need to complete a full current account switch to HSBC Premier by the 12th of August 2025. This needs to include your salary and at least 2 direct debits. And when it comes to salary, it has to be the monthly deposit into your account from your employer has to be equivalent to earning £100,000 a year before taxes. And then these salary deposits and direct debit payments have to continue at least the end of October. And then on the 1st of November or after it, you will get your gift card. And obviously, if you decide to switch to HSBC Premier in order to take advantage of this incentive, please make sure to read the full terms and conditions that are available on their website. And now let's jump into the regular benefits of the HSBC Premier account, and I broadly categorize them into one of 2 buckets. The first one being banking benefits and the other one being lifestyle benefits. So in terms of banking benefits, one of the kind of biggest things you get is just better and easier access to support. So for example, as a Premier customer, you will have access to 24/7 telephone banking, meaning that there is a telephone number that you can call at any time of day or night with any kind of questions or requests relating to your account. And personally, I've actually found this quite useful because whenever I need to do something with my bank account that can't be done either via the app or the website, I keep forgetting to call the bank during normal working hours, and then when I remember in the middle of the night that I need to do something like, I don't know, order certified bank statements, it's very convenient to be able to do that within a few minutes by calling the 24/7 number. And obviously, there is a limit to what the agents there can do outside of working hours because some situations have to be deferred to other teams that only operate like Monday to Friday, for example. In that case, the agent can still take some notes and then make sure things get going the next working day. The other kind of support related feature as well are the so-called wealth specialists. This is a very fancy name, and I've honestly never used this service with HSBC, but I have used this similar offering from Barclays Premier. There there they're called Premier Financial Guides, and I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. So in my particular case, I had a very specific need. Basically, I was considering buying a new house and I really wanted to avoid being in a chain. So one of the options I was looking at was to buy the new house first, move to it, and only then sell the current apartment where I live. And that would mean that I would have 2 properties and 2 mortgages for a short period of time. So I wanted to talk to someone about this and how this would work. So I scheduled a consultation with one of those financial guides or Premier guides. And actually the woman I spoke to was extremely helpful. She walked me through both scenarios and mentioning things like, stamp duty considerations, explaining how eligibility check would work for given that I would have 2 mortgages, and also even encouraged me to make more research and check out other lenders in case I can get a better interest rate. And while I definitely wouldn't pay for having this benefit with financial guides, because any decent mortgage broker would have given me the same advice, I just really appreciated how easy and seamless and just fast it was to access this service. And then in theory, the same financial guides should be able to help you with things like financial planning and investment planning. But personally, I've always thought that I can manage my own investments better than a financial advisor, especially one that has vested interests in selling to me financial products from that specific bank. Now, one last potentially useful benefit that I categorize as a banking benefit of HSBC Premier is the free overdraft of up to £500. This basically means your current account can dip into negative territory of up to minus £500 for free for a short period of time, which is essentially a form of borrowing. While I have never personally used this, so no experience to share, I can imagine that this can be useful for some people. But with that, let's move on to the lifestyle benefit side of things, which is going to be hopefully a lot more interesting. So first of all, there are a bunch of health-related benefits that actually weren't there before and got added when HSBC refreshed their Premier account offering last year. So first of all, with the health offerings, you get unlimited free consultations with an online GP, and those can be used by you, your partner, and your dependents. There are also online therapy and physiotherapy appointments that you can have a limited number of per year, and these allowances can also be shared between yourself, your partner, and your dependents. And finally, there is 1 health check per year that can be used by either you or your partner, and this is essentially a free blood test. And I was honestly quite surprised to see these kind of tangible benefits be added by HSBC after the refresh last year, and these can be quite useful, especially if you don't have private health insurance. Now, another lifestyle benefit of the Premier account is the travel insurance, which again covers you, your partner, and your dependents, and it includes things like medical cover while on the trip, travel inconvenience cover, so things like flight cancellations, missed connections, lost luggage, and overall, having looked through the policy document, it seems like a fully fledged travel insurance policy, so maybe a little bit less comprehensive than what you get with the Amex Platinum, but still a very solid product. And now the last lifestyle benefit of this account that we are going to discuss is the HSBC Premier World Elite MasterCard, which is a credit card which unlocks things like lounge access at the airports and fast track. And to be clear, this credit card is paid, and in fact it has an annual fee of £290, but it still kind of falls under the benefits of the Premier account because you can not apply for it unless you are a Premier customer with HSBC. And I've reviewed this card a few years ago, but it has changed quite a bit since the refresh that HSBC did last year. Basically, in exchange for paying £290 every year, you get 3 things. First of all, there is unlimited lounge access via Priority Pass, as well as access to fast track security. The fast track security thing only works at select airports. For example, in the UK or in London, it works at Gatwick, Luton, and Stansted, and does not work at Heathrow. And then both the lounge access and the fast track security are only available for yourself. And if you want to add an additional card holder that will share the same benefits, that's going to cost you an additional £60 every year. Secondly, when you spend money on this credit card, you earn an equivalent of 1.5 Avios, and actually a little bit better than Avios because you actually earn HSBC reward points, which can be converted into Avios or airline miles with other like 10 airlines, so you get a little bit of flexibility similar to what you get with Amex membership reward points. And then finally, if you spend £2,000 within the first 3 months with the card, you get a welcome bonus which is equivalent to 20,000 avios. So is this actually a good card regardless of the whole Premier thing? Because obviously you don't have to get this credit card, you can just enjoy the free benefits that come with HSBC Premier. But when it comes to the credit card, well, on the one hand, it earns you points at a level comparable to Amex Gold or even British Airways Premium Plus. It also gives you lounge access and fast track security, but on the other hand, it costs almost £300 a year, 290 to be exact, and there are actually other cards like the Lloyd's World Elite MasterCard, which I reviewed in one of the past videos, that will give you the same lounge access and fast track security, but for less than £200 a year. And then the only difference between the Lloyd's card, which is £100 cheaper, and the HSBC Premier card is going to be the points earning and the welcome bonus. So in a sense, whether or not the HSBC card makes sense for you is going to come down to how much money you're planning to spend on it. So we've looked at all the main benefits of the HSBC Premier current account. And by the way, if you're curious to see how it compares to other Premier accounts in the UK, there is an article down below in the description. But going back to HSBC, this account honestly doesn't look bad at all because it gives you quite a few tangible benefits with no annual fee. However, there are a couple of things here to be careful about. First of all, there is a reason why HSBC or any other Premier account provider is offering you perks, and that reason is they want to lure you into their financial ecosystem, especially if you're a higher earner. And here, while chasing perks, you need to be careful to not fall into using subpar or suboptimal financial products that come with these accounts. For example, if you were planning to transfer £100,000 of your savings or investments into HSBC just for the sake of qualifying for the Premier account, that might not be worth it at all if as a result you're going to end up paying higher fees on your investments. So with things like this, before transferring your savings, if it's not just transferring your salary but also like other things, make sure to do the math first before making any decisions. And secondly, a lot of people, I would imagine, who qualify for HSBC Premier by earning £100,000 a year or more would already have things like GP appointments because their employer would provide them with private health insurance. If they're also into travel, they could also have travel insurance from having a card like Amex Platinum. For example, personally, in terms of travel insurance, I'm triple covered because I have my travel insurance from the employer, I have Amex Platinum travel insurance, and I have travel insurance from Revolut Metal. So having HSBC Premier in that sense would add nothing for me. And actually, that's exactly the reason why personally I prefer Barclays Premier over HSBC. Even though Barclays doesn't give things like travel insurance or GP appointments to their Premier customers, it does come with benefits that I don't have access to already. And by the way, in this video here, I talk about my current account and card setup, including Barclays Premier. So check it out if you're curious to see how I use these products day to day and how much money they actually save me. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching this video today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.